Okay, so social development. We're going to start off with the concept of attachment. So we're back to infancy in this phase, in this lecture. Okay, attachment is that warm bonding that babies develop towards their caretakers. Now, initially, behaviorists thought that attachment occurred because moms had food to provide to their babies, and that's why babies became attached to their moms. Behaviorists were very, reward based, and that's what they thought would cause that kind of feeling of attachment, is that the babies could trust their moms and get nourishment. So that's what you're kind of seeing in this picture, is a test of that hypothesis that babies will prefer a food source over a source of comfort. So this is a very mean study, and I apologize for having to tell you about it, and in fact this researcher Harlow did some really mean stuff to monkeys, but this is like the most benign story. So in the 1950s, he separated baby rhesus monkeys from their moms and raised them in isolation with what he called surrogate moms. On the left was the surrogate mom who provided food, and that's it. She had no comfort. She has a blank, staring face. On the right was the mom that didn't have any food, but she had comfort. So she was wrapped in a terry cloth towel. She had a monkey-looking mommy face, and so the babies had to make a choice. In the actual experiment, the food mom was on one end of the cage, and the comfort mom was on the other end of the cage. And what he found was that the babies would stay on their comfort mom and cuddle their comfort mom, only leaving when they desperately were hungry and wanted to get some food, and then they'd come running back and cuddle on comfort mom. Whenever they were scared, they'd run to comfort mom. So pretty quickly it became clear to Harlow that attachment is based on physical affection and body contact, not on providing a food source. I think, early behaviorists had thought that monkeys in particular were focused on food sources, because whenever monkeys are in the wild with their moms, or in captivity with their moms, and the baby monkey gets scared, he not only runs to his mom to cuddle, he puts her nipple in his mouth. And so it appears that he's running over there to eat, but he's doing like baby humans do when they suck their thumb or suck their pacifier. Sucking is comforting. And so they want mommy's cuddles, and they want the mouth comfort that is, for a monkey, associated with mom's nipple. So we now know attachment comes from affection and body contact, not from nourishment. Okay, so that was a big leap in psychology's understanding of babies and their caretakers' relationships. Now, another huge leap came when Mary Ainsworth developed a way to measure the type of attachment that babies have with their mothers. Her original studies were all moms, and then it wasn't until we really understood the attachments that babies had to their moms that then other researchers started saying, well, what about with dad? What about with grandma? What about with babysitter, right? So they have expanded this out and looked at other caretakers. I'm going to use the shorthand of mom during this lecture just because it's clearer. I use that as the titles on my table. It just makes a little bit more sense. But just in the back of your mind, be aware they've tested all this with other caregivers also. Okay, so the basic design in the Ainsworth study was, she called it the strange situation. You take a toddler who's between the ages of 12 months and 24 months of age. So that's second year of life. So 12 to 24-month-old toddlers and their moms. And they put them in a psychology lab. Now, just FYI, because probably most of you have not seen a psychology lab, they're basically just, classrooms in the psychology building that are more or less junk heaps. Some researchers keep their labs cleaner than other researchers do. With the research on the strange situation, they tend to try and make it look a little bit like, I don't know, I'd almost say like a doctor's waiting room, because you've got sort of uncomfortable chair for mom to sit in, pile of toys for baby to play with, another chair like as if another person might want to come sit there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you feel like you're in a public place, but it's a psychology lab. Mom is given very specific instructions about how to interact with her baby, and it can vary based on the researcher. The design that I participated in with my then toddler was I was told to go sit in one of the seats and fill out paperwork. I was taking like personality scales or something, and I was told specifically, don't initiate contact with your baby. If your baby initiates contact with you, respond normally, but don't you start it. Let your baby free play and let her explore. So I knew what I was supposed to do. I'll give you another little aside. I was not participating in the actual study because I'm tainted because I knew too much about the strange situation. I was pilot data so that the researchers could figure out if their design was working correctly, if they needed to tighten up instructions, stuff like that. So my data wasn't really included in the study. It's one of the downsides for my children being children of a graduate student was that, you know, they got stuck being volunteered for a lot of developmental studies. Anyway, so I'm supposed to sit there and not start anything, but I can respond to her if she initiates. At one point then I hear a knock on the door, and my job is to get up and leave the I'm supposed to say bye Sierra. It was my daughter Sierra that was in. I'm like, bye Sierra, and wait until she looks over her shoulder, wave bye-bye, and then walk out the door and shut it right behind me, and then immediately look through the two-way glass so that I could see that she's okay and stuff like that. Then after they had assessed her response to my departure, I was sent back in, and I was told specifically to put my hands on my knees while standing and go, hi Sierra, and then hold my hands out to her. And then I was supposed to respond to her based on whatever she did. So we've got this three-phase design where we look at how the baby's behaving while mom's in the room. We look at how the baby responds when mom leaves, and then we look at how the baby responds when mom comes back. Okay, now half the babies tested using this design have fallen in the secure attachment type category. What that means is that while mom is present, the baby will feel comfortable exploring the environment and periodically checks in. The baby might literally come over to mom. Now, remember, these are 12-month-olds to 24-month-olds, so a lot of them were not talking, most of them weren't talking. A lot of them weren't walking yet. All of them were crawling. So some of them would come over to baby, to mom. Sometimes they would make little, you know, initiate contact voices and be like, ah, to try and get mom to look over so they could show her the toy they're holding or whatever. Like, that's what they would count as a check-in, you know, making sure that mom's still there and paying attention to them. Now, when mom gets up and leaves the room, a securely attached baby will protest her departure. The baby will start to cry. The baby will oftentimes crawl or toddle over to the door that she went through, maybe pull up on the door and pat on it with their hands. A baby who is securely attached typically will have tears balanced on their lower lids, and their face is all, you know, crying, but they're not super red-faced. They're not angry. They're upset. When mom comes back through and says, hi, baby, and holds her arms out, a securely attached baby settles right back down. As soon as mom picks the baby up, the baby has what she wanted, and she settles right back down. And in fact, might want, okay, now that I feel good, let me down again. I wanted to go see that toy I was playing with. And they feel confident again back in their environment. The thing that was making them upset has come back, and now they can go back to what they were doing. The other half of babies who have been tested fall into the insecure attachment style, and there are two types of insecure attachments, and half of each of the remaining babies half fall into each category. So about 25% of babies tested fall into the anxious ambivalent type. These babies tend to cling to their moms and don't really want to explore the environment. In the videos of these kinds of babies, oftentimes they're just sitting right next to mom's feet while she sits in the chair like she was assigned to. Interestingly, sometimes the baby's exploring and the mom is the one who violates the rules in that she initiates contact with the baby. So the baby's exploring, checking out toys, and mom, next thing you know, is down on the floor showing the baby how to use the toy. After she'd been explicitly told, don't initiate, right? So it kind of implies mom's clinging, right? When mom leaves an anxious ambivalent baby, this baby throws a fit. May throw the toy that was in their hand. When they go over to the door, instead of patting with their open palms, they may be pounding with their little fists. Their faces are bright red, no signs of tears, and they're screaming. These are babies who are clearly upset that mom abandoned them here. When mom comes back into the room and says, hi, baby, and holds her arms out, baby wants to be picked up. It's like, this is where the ambivalent part comes in. The baby wants to be comforted by mom, but they're still really mad. So mom picks the baby up, and then the baby punishes mom by pulling her hair or slapping her face or squeezing her cheek. Or maybe she the baby wants to be picked up at first, but then immediately wants back down, arches her back, let me down, rejects mom. Anxious ambivalent babies are nervous while mom is there. They don't see her as a great source of security, and then when they're left by their mom, they get really mad about it, and they want to either reject or punish mom. The final category of babies tested, the other 25%, have the other insecure type, which is avoidant. These babies don't check in with their moms during the play bout at all. They explore way too independently for a 12 to 24-month-old. When mom leaves, the baby's not upset about it at all. Some of these babies, early researchers thought maybe they were deaf because their moms would say bye and the babies would barely acknowledge that mom was leaving. And then when mom comes back and says, hi, baby, and holds their arms out, baby doesn't come to mom, just sort of looks up, yes, I saw you, and goes back to playing. So about 25% of babies fall into that category. Okay. Now, it probably doesn't take a ton of insight from the description I gave to make you think, I hope I have a secure child when I have children, or if I have children already, I hope my child's secure, right? I have to admit, after I signed my daughter up to be pilot data, among my friends in grad school, I was like, oh my gosh, if she's not securely attached, this is going to look really bad. Luckily for me, she scored in the secure attachment category, thank goodness. Why? Why is that a thank goodness? Well, first off, it kind of implies that mom's important to baby, and mom wants to be important to baby, right? But it also shows that baby trusts mom, and that mom is giving baby the tools to have the confidence to explore their world, not always having to be held and clung to and stuff like that. So while mom's present, she's a source of security for the baby when you have a securely attached baby. When mom's present for insecure babies, she's not a source of security at all. Either the baby isn't getting enough security, so they cling to the mom, or doesn't see mom as any kind of helpmate at all and just ignores her. Now, what does this mean over the long term? Babies who are securely attached tend to grow into toddlers and school-age kids who are more popular and exploratory and more willing to try new things. So in the near future, we have sort of social benefits of being securely attached. In the long-term future, children who were securely attached to someone, it doesn't have to be mom, it could be just anyone the baby was securely attached to, that child is more likely to grow up into adulthood to be the sort of person who, in romantic relationships and in friendships, to be more securely attached. Anxious ambivalent children are more likely to grow into anxious ambivalent adults in relationships who are overly dependent, jealous, maybe the kind who stalk your phone or stalk your Facebook page, see what you've been up to, right? The avoidant type of child is more likely to grow up to be the type of adult who doesn't really get appropriately emotionally attached to people and keeps people at arm's distance, never really has close relationships, is afraid to let people in. So there seems to be good benefits for being securely attached, and I'm sure that the first thing you're thinking is, well, how does one ensure a secure attachment? Well, one really cannot ensure a secure attachment. There are multitudes of factors that go into the attachment type that a baby has with his or her caregiver. The one thing that has been reliably tied to secure attachment is responsive parenting. Parents who, during the first year of their baby's lives, met their baby's needs reliably. When the baby was hungry, they fed them. When the baby was uncomfortable, they soothed them for the first year of life. Actually, the researchers argue over whether it needs to be the first 6 months of life or the full first year. But during that first year, the parents met whatever needs that baby had at a level that made the baby willing to approach the world from a position of basic trust. When you have an insecurely attached baby, there are a lot of factors that can go into that. Anxious and ambivalent babies a lot of times had health problems that made it difficult for their parents to take care of them during their first year of life. They oftentimes had very young parents who maybe weren't completely confident in their parenting abilities. So those factors may contribute to anxiousness. The avoidant type of child is more likely to have the type of parent who was very unreliable in meeting the baby's needs. Not just set up a schedule and I'm only going to feed the baby every 4 hours. It doesn't matter how much they cry, because that's at least reliable. Instead, I don't know if I'm going to get my needs met or not at all. I have no idea what's coming and what's not coming. So the avoidant baby learns that they can only trust themselves. So these are kind of some things that go along with the attachment type that a baby might have. In my regular classes, one of the first questions I always get is, can your attachment type change? Sadly, it's easier to take a child who had been securely attached and become unpredictable in their second or third year of life and show them that they shouldn't be securely attached and that they shouldn't be trusting of their environment and turn them into an insecure child than it is to take a child who by 12 months is insecure and turn them into a securely attached child. It's kind of like that schema discussion we were having earlier, where once you think that you've appropriately represented the world, it only takes one reminder that you're right to throw you back to the very beginning of that list of 20 experiences that you have to have in order to convince you that your schema is incorrect. So if you've got a basic approach to the world where you are insecure, and you now have a family that's behaving very securely towards you and really encouraging you to feel basic trust, you could be doing really well, but somewhere along the 10th or 11th exposure, there's a failure. You're back to ground zero, and you're like, see, I knew it. I can't trust the environment. Whereas a securely attached child, it's easier to look for errors. Let's just put it that way. It's easier for the securely attached child to start to put up their guard and become insecure than it is for an insecurely attached child to become secure. It's not impossible. It's just easier to go from the positive to the negative than it is to go from the negative to the positive. So, all right. All right, let's go ahead and stop here, and we'll come back in the next segment and talk about parenting styles.